Hey folks, this is Kalani. The Legion Remix event is here, but I've seen a lot of folks still struggling with what class they might want to play through this event. What classes will have the easiest time leveling, what will be viable and sought after for group content, and which classes are the best for going at your own pace, but still being able to earn enough bronze to buy everything that you want. It's a tough question for sure, but we have some tips that might help you narrow things down. So let's go over what you should consider when deciding on a class to play through the Legion Remix event and what the best class for you might be. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. The first and probably most obvious choice for a class to play in the new event is a class that you don't already have up at max level. With a new time running character, you'll start all the way down at level 10 and you'll have to level up to 80 before you can really start ramping up your bronze collection for all of those shiny goodies. That means this event also serves as a way to play something new and level a character outside of the typical retail leveling experience, while picking up a bunch of cosmetic rewards along the way. That's one of the highlights of this event. Level quickly, become super powerful, and blast your way through all the content that Legion has to offer. It's just one more way to change up leveling and make it more interesting to play multiple characters. It's also super important to note that we will be able to play any time running characters after this event ends. When the event comes to a close, all of your time running characters will get ported over and become regular retail characters ready to jump into the Midnight expansion. So we don't lose them. It's not a completely separate game mode like some other events have been. This time we can also transfer our characters over early if you want to, so if you end up leveling ult super fast and you'd rather just play them in retail and get them all geared up in the Turbo Boost event, you can convert any of your time running characters whenever you want, but that is a one-way street. So after you convert one, you won't be able to get back into the Legion Remix event with that specific character. So every character you make for the event will be playable in Midnight, so it's always worth taking a look to see if there are any classes that you'd be interested in playing in the next expansion, and use Legion Remix to get those classes leveled up. Now the Midnight expansion is changing combat in general in a massive way, and pretty much every single specialization is getting reworked. We have a video going over every major class change coming in the next expansion, so maybe check that out to see if there are any classes that pique your interest, or maybe some classes you think just look super boring with all of their abilities cut out. Legion also had a lot of class-specific content all throughout the various patches, things like class order halls, class campaigns, and artifact quests. There are also brand new Fel-themed versions of every class mount, so if there's anything that you didn't experience back in Legion when it was current content, like Shadow Priests picking up Xal'atath's blade and how that all progressed to her assaulting our entire world, well, now's the perfect time to fill in some of those gaps and chase down some of the rewards that you might be interested in. So it's always worth choosing a class based on which class halls or quests you want to complete and explore. It's also important to note that if you want to pick up everything on offer from Legion Remix, this is not a short stint. Not only do we have multiple time-gated phases that introduce new content, so you'll have to come back every 2 weeks or so to get the new stuff done and unlock that patches section of rewards, but your character will get more powerful the more time that you put into it. Eventually, you will be able to solo basically anything in this game mode, including the highest difficulties of raids and high-level Mythic Plus dungeons, so you'll be playing your character a lot, which means it's super important that you play something you actually enjoy, at least when it comes to the character you want to really grind on. Getting one character to the point of being strong enough to solo everything will take a lot of time, and that's going to take much longer if you bounce around characters because you aren't having fun, so make sure you're playing something you actually enjoy. Now, one question that I've seen pop up quite a lot is, can everyone actually become super OP and solo everything, or is it just going to be the classes and specs that can already do that stuff, like the BM Hunters, the Warlocks, Demon Hunters, and Death Knights? Well, there are a few very important factors you want to keep in mind when deciding what class to play. Firstly, everyone gets the same artifact traits and talent tree. Back in Legion, each artifact was different, with different progression paths and new talents to pick up. That is not the case in Legion Remix. Everyone has the same tree, which means everyone has access to the same powerful abilities that change up how you play. A good chunk of your power is going to come from this artifact trait tree, the special new active abilities and all of the passives that augment those key active spells and boost your stats. Because everyone has access to the same stuff, everyone can be super OP in the same kinds of ways. Obviously, the classes with better baseline self-sustain are going to have a bit more self-sustain still, but the more you play and the more you lean on your borrowed power in this event, the smaller the gap between classes will be. For example, the first point in everyone's artifact tree is pretty huge. Remix time speeds up your cooldown recovery by 1000% for a few seconds, so even classes that rely on lengthy cooldowns to deal decent damage can burst for huge amounts with smart use of their remix time cooldown. If you channel it fully, you get about 40 seconds off every cooldown you have, including your big new active spells from the artifact tree. Now, even though you can only progress down one of the 5 rows at a time, everything on the left hand side before that is available at all times to everyone. These talents include a passive speed boost and a bunch of speed stat minor talents, immunity to fall damage, a big health regen buff, some resource generation, and all of these bonuses can persist for a little bit when you enter combat. So everyone is going to be pretty fast. Everyone will have good out of combat health regen. This reduces the gap between classes even further. When you start getting your hands on jewelry and trinkets, things get really interesting because they work a bit differently in Legion Remix. Instead of providing you with just secondary stats or a proc effect, jewelry and trinkets will actually give you extra ranks of certain passive abilities in your artifact trait tree. When you're unlocking stuff yourself, you're limited to just one of the 5 major rows, but jewelry and trinkets can provide traits from anywhere in this tree. That lets you mix and match things to create some really overpowered setups, or you can just load everything into one damage-based trait and rank it up to way past its max rank. Now, some really important passives to point out would include Storm Surger and Brewing Storm. They do slightly different things depending on how you move, but the real key here is that both of these talents let you cast while moving. So every caster will be free to move around while dishing out all of their damage, and healers never have to worry about needing to stand still to finish their heals. There will also be huge damage passives like Touch of Malice and Terror from Below, which can carry your damage for the most part. So yes, every class can become crazy strong, and everyone should be able to solo anything in this game mode if you put in enough time and farm enough infinite power and gear. Now, there are some considerations to be made for efficiency. In Legion Remix, a lot of good rewards come from group content. Random dungeons can be a very quick way to level. Looking for raid offers some great early bonuses and good experience, and as you reach endgame the raids will become very important. So being able to get quick or instant queues can speed things up quite considerably. I would consider playing a class that has a tank or healer spec, so you can skip over any queues that you might want to sign up for, or get instant invites to group content. Both tanks and healers will continue to be important as long as you're running group content, and a lot of big rewards come from things like heroic raids up at max level. Until everyone gets super OP and can just zoom through raids, you are going to need some dedicated tanks and healers to make sure your runs are smooth. If you play one of those high demand roles, you can level faster, gear up faster, and you'll just be spending less time waiting around in queues or group finder. Something else to consider is the new Heroic World tier difficulty option. Basically, you can turn the open world into a far more difficult experience, but you're rewarded with extra loot and far more experience for mob kills especially. But this is not a walk in the park. This is where the classes who are great at soloing will start to shine, because they can enter the Heroic World tier much earlier and benefit from the extra rewards. So specs like BM Hunters, as long as you keep your pet alive and they can hold aggro, you'll do fine. This also includes any self-sustained monsters like Havoc Demon Hunters, but most notably tanks seem to have a much easier time in the Heroic World tier as well, so that may be one more reason to play a tank in Legion Remix. Everyone should get to the Heroic World tier eventually. Some classes and specs will just be able to go there a bit earlier and still survive the extra damage, so they'll tend to level a bit faster. With so much of our power coming from artifact weapons, traits, and jewelry pieces, this is also the perfect time to try a role that you haven't really played before. So if you've ever wanted to jump into tanking or healing, but you've been scared due to the extra pressure those roles put on you, this event is the perfect time to try things out. Your artifact will carry you for the most part, almost no matter what role you are filling, so it's a much easier and less stressful way to jump into something new. Now, with all that being said, I do think there is an actual best class to play if you're going to go hard and you want to pick up everything as quickly as possible, and that class would be Demon Hunters. Havoc has an insane toolkit for this kind of content. They have great mobility, great self-sustain, and good AoE burst as well, so they can clear through monsters really quickly. It's almost a perfect package. They also have access to a tank specialization, so you can skip over the queues early on, and you will continue to be valuable into the end game, even as healers begin to be phased out a little bit. Legion was also the expansion in which Demon Hunters were introduced, so it's got some very cool class quests and stuff to progress through as well. It's almost like it was meant to be. I still think playing something you enjoy is more important, but if efficiency is really that important to you, you can't go wrong with a Demon Hunter. So if you've been struggling to pick a class to play through the Legion Remix event, hopefully this helps you narrow things down a little bit. I think the most important thing is making sure that you power up one main character instead of splitting your time between a whole bunch of alts. You can absolutely play alts to level them up and get their dailies done, but if you want to become really crazy OP, you want to focus on one character to ramp up their infinite power and that last artifact trait. That's how you get to the point of being able to solo anything in the game. Personally, I'll be going with a Paladin, tanking where needed to skip over any queues that we run into, and if tank becomes super OP in the late game, I'll always have that option. Ret also has some amazing burst, which I'm sure will just get better as you add in all those shiny artifact traits and talents into the mix. It might not be as good of a pick when compared to Demon Hunter, I don't think anything really is, but I also enjoy Paladin far more now, so hopefully that helps me stick with it and get super OP on at least one character to gather up all of those gear transmogs, mounts, pets, and other rewards. What are you planning on playing first through the Legion Remix event, and what are you going to focus on as a priority, gearing up one character to be crazy powerful, or using the event to level up even more alts? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.